So, Jim, I just wanted to get a little bit of information in regard to your family. Is your mother still living?
She is. She is. Yep, she still lives here in the South Florida area, and my father also is still here in the South Florida area. Both my parents are divorced, and he lives in Miami. My mom lives down in the Keys.
Tell me a little bit about the relationship between you and your mother.
Very good relationship because, and I think that was a result of my parents divorcing pretty early, and my mom kind of having to sort of pick up the slack for both parents. So we've always had a very solid relationship. So,
And how old were you when your parents were divorced?
as best as I can recall, I was pretty young, so 4 or 5 by the time I think things were finalized. So yeah.
And then tell me about the relationship between you and your father.
Well, he's been kind of mentally ill for a long time in his life, so the relationship was difficult, at least on that level. Initially, the illness wasn't as grave, but as it progressed and things got worse, obviously that that made it very, very difficult for us to get along. Plus, his mother and his brother had this kind of intense amount of control over him, so I didn't really get to see him as much as I wanted when I was a kid. And then he moved out to California when I was probably in 5th or 6th grade, and didn't see him all the way up until my senior year in high school when he moved back to Florida. So we had kind of a long distance relationship. We wrote letters, but so it's been kind of a difficult part of chapter of my life. So, but as I think I might have mentioned to you earlier, I've been able to move back to the South Florida area and be closer to him. And as he's dealing with some of the more serious medical issues now, I feel like that's kind of a great opportunity for me to reconnect.
And when you say mental issues in regard to your father, what exactly do you mean?
Yeah, he has schizophrenia. Yeah, so he has been afflicted with schizophrenia for the better part of his life.
And then how old were you approximately when you sort of discovered exactly what was going on with your father?
I think about the age of, say, 17, 18, I really understood the seriousness of the disease. I think as a kid you kind of just sort of, it's out there, but you don't really know what it is until you start questioning, when you're 17, 18. But by that point in my life, I was getting ready to leave for the Air Force, so.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the Air Force.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go into the Air Force?
Sure. A good friend of mine had gone in, wanted to travel, and just kind of wanted to leave the South Florida area. I'd grown up here all my life. I thought I want to see a different part of the world, and wanted to work on planes. Always loved things mechanical, always loved planes as a kid, and I thought, what better of a branch to join, so.
So how many years were you in the Air Force?
5.
And then what made you decide to leave?
I never really wanted to make it a career. I knew going in that I just wanted to stay in and do my time, get out and just go to college, and so, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So getting back to your family, do you have siblings?
Only child.
Oh, you are.
Mm-hmm. So Christmases were wonderful. All for me.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. Tell me a little bit about your social life, what you like to do in your free time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So enjoy traveling. Kind of got bit by the bug when I was in the Air Force. Traveled a lot around Europe and was down in Egypt and the Holy Land for a trip. Enjoy reading. Enjoy working out. Spending time with friends and family. So, yeah.
Do you have a network of friends, or do you have a best friend, or a couple people that you say are very close to you?
I do, yes.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, some are back in the Atlanta area where I just moved from. Others, I think for me, you find, at least for me, different phases in my life. I got my military buddies, I've got college friends and friends from, where I used to live in Atlanta. So I still have that level of a connection, fortunately. We don't see each other as often as I'd like, but we're able to talk on the phone pretty frequently and, email and text and all that, so that's helpful.
So, I wanted to ask you about your past job history. Tell me, do you have a job right now?
I don't. Currently I'm on leave. I was ordained a Catholic priest about 5 years ago, and with just the kind of the sheer recognition that my father was reaching a point in his life where he's going to need a little bit more serious medical attention, and since I'm an only child and both his mother and brother have passed, it became very apparent to me that I had to kind of reconnect and come back to South Florida on some level. So currently I'm on what's called a leave of absence, but my background is pretty heavily academic. A couple master's degrees, preparing for priestly ordination, but even before that, working out in the world, doing construction and property management. Because of my background in the Air Force was I never actually did get into working on planes, but I did work on construction of facilities and things like that. So I kind of use that as a way to get back working into the world. So my background's somewhat varied, but that's kind of my current state is leave of absence, working towards a master's degree in counseling, primarily because I do enjoy doing that. Yeah.
So, are you a Catholic priest right now, or are you working toward that?
I am a priest now.
Oh, you are?
I am. Have been one for almost 5 years.
So are you practicing in a church?
I'm not. The leave of absence stipulates that I just kind of take some time away from the priesthood to try to figure out some of the family issues that are going on, and then come back in about a year with an answer on some level.
So obviously you're not married.
Correct.
Do you have any children?
No.
No children. Do you have any desire to have children?
Well, I think, the desire for a family is there. But as a priest, the thing that you begin to recognize is family is a great good. And the concept behind the Catholic priesthood is that the sacrifice that you make in having a natural family entails paving the way for having a spiritual family. You sort of adopted spiritual brothers and sisters and sons and daughters, if you will, in that respect. So it's kind of a much more, like I said, spiritual, family understanding, if you will. That's the dimension behind, why a priest does not have a family. So natural family.
So out of all the occupations you've had in your life, which one was the most favorable for you?
Wow, that's hard to say. I mean, there are aspects of it that were enjoyable in many, many ways. But I think the one thing that I began to discover, at least in the last 5 years, was the enjoyment of, and even though it's tough at times, the enjoyment of, I guess I should say enjoying helping people in counseling situations. That to me was just, it was extremely gratifying. Yeah.
It's nice. I want to go back to the relationship question, and I wanted to ask you, right now in your life, what is the most important relationship that you have, be it with platonic, romantic, mother, father, the next door neighbor?
Right. Yeah, great question. Certainly my mom, I think, because she's always been that source of stability for me and support. I'm beginning to realize now how important, even though my father doesn't quite get, sort of the reason why I'm moving back. I mean, I think that to me has also become very therapeutic, to be honest with you. So I think both. Yeah.
And then throughout your life, what relationship that you've had do you think has made the most impact on you, and why?
Again, I think my parents, even though certainly more, I'd have to say more my mom, because we spent more time together. She's the one that was very influential in my own life, and I learned a lot about her by way of hard work, sacrifice, work ethic, commitment. So again, I have to say, probably my mom. I've had a lot of great friendships, still have a lot of great friends, as I said, that I stay in touch with, but I think it comes back to family. That family dynamic is just crucial for me. So.
And then addressing the endeavor that you have to
Mm-hmm.
become a counselor,
Mm-hmm.
what in your mind and in your heart and in your life experiences have led you to this point?
Just being able to look back, and even in close to 5 years, well, two things. Leading up to, the priesthood and that part of my life, people would just, for whatever reason, we would always just strike up conversations. They would seek me out, and what do you think of this? And I found that there was this kind of intuitive sense of being able to help people and provide answers that just seemed kind of logical to me. And then I think, certainly practically speaking, doing it, being in a pastoral counseling setting, having folks come to me with, all sorts of issues, as you can imagine. I mean, some pretty serious, some very serious, some life or death, others more kind of at the surface, and figuring out, wow, I really enjoy this. I mean, again, it's labor intensive at times, but seeing real results, and that is very cool. So,
Can you tell me, as a child,
Mhm.
what was the happiest moment in your life that you can remember?
happiest moment in my life, well, again, goes back to the family. We had a reunion when I was probably about 10, 12 years old, somewhere in there, where we all went up north, where my family's originally from, and we were at the beach, in Maryland and in Delaware, and just had a fantastic time. It was just one of those moments where, as a kid, you realize, wow, all my cousins are here, all my aunts and uncles are here. We just had a blast. We had an absolute blast. In fact, I have family down right now from the north, and we still talk about that reunion. So, yeah.
No, that sounds like a very, very nice
That's right.
time.
That's great.
And as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
what would you see as your happiest moment?
Adult, happiest moment. I think that's a great question. I mean, certainly my achievements, my academic achievements, those are very important for me, because I know I've worked hard for them. I'm giving you a few. When you're in the Air Force and you're an 18-year-old kid, finishing boot camp
No,
is like,
I can imagine.
it's heaven. I mean, when you get through that, because you feel like you're in a prison. But that was certainly a big accomplishment for me. But then also, I think this point in my life, to be honest with you, it's still emerging. It's still, I should say, or evolving. But there's a real sense of it always used to be a couple of visits per year with my dad, and then I'm back doing whatever, back to the military, or back to this, or back to that. But even in the last few months, I can tell you that there's a real sense of a deep reconnection that's taking place. For me personally, that's very therapeutic. And that also is an important achievement. Even though I probably don't quite grasp how big it is, I can kind of, sense that it's huge for me. So, yeah. Thank you.